The message came through at 0400 hours, crackling over shortwave, barely audible against the background radiation of Arcturus Station. Commodore John Mercer had been reviewing tactical displays when the communications officer called him over, face pale in the blue glow of the console. "Sir, you need to hear this." The voice that emerged from the speakers wasn't human. It possessed a strange, resonant quality, like stones grinding together underwater. The translation matrix struggled to process it, fragmenting the message into disjointed phrases before finally resolving into a single, chilling warning. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. Mercer leaned forward, fingers drumming against the console. Source: unknown, sir. It's broadcasting on all frequencies. Every colony in the sector is receiving it. Is it directed at us? The communications officer hesitated. I don't think so, sir. It feels like someone warning someone else. Mercer nodded slowly, a frown creasing his weathered face. At 52, he'd spent 30 years in space, worked his way up from ensign to commodore of the Retribution fleet. In all that time, he'd never heard anything like this. Log it. Flag it for intelligence. The alert klaxon cut him off. Red emergency lighting flooded the command center as screens flickered to tactical display. The strategic officer's voice was tight with tension. Sir, multiple hyperspace ruptures at Epsilon Eridani 3. Mercer straightened, immediately shifting into command mode. Numbers, configuration. At least 30 capital ships. Sir. Silhouette matches Cavor Dominion warships. They're deploying orbital platforms around the colony. Epsilon Eridani 3. 2 million colonists, minimal defensive capabilities. Status of the colonial defense? A moment of silence. Then, there is no defense, sir. They're just dropping kinetics. City killers. The main view screen showed it happening in real time. Massive tungsten rods descending through the atmosphere, trailing fire. Where they struck, blinding flashes erupted, followed by expanding shock waves that flattened everything for dozens of kilometers. How many? Mercer asked, his voice hollow. Preliminary estimates suggest total casualties. Sir, the colony is gone. 2 million souls gone in minutes. As the command center erupted into activity, Mercer stood motionless, the alien warning echoing in his mind. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. Someone should have warned the Cavor Dominion. The Retribution fleet assembled within 24 hours, 12 capital ships, 36 destroyers, and over 100 support vessels. They gathered at the jump point beyond Arcturus, a bristling armada of humanity's vengeance. In his quarters aboard the flagship Nemesis, Mercer studied the intelligence reports. The Cavor Dominion had retreated to their primary colony at Vega Secundus after the attack. Their fleet remained in defensive formation, apparently satisfied with their show of force. The door chimed, and Colonel Briggs entered without waiting for permission. A tall, scarred woman with close-cropped gray hair. She commanded the fleet's ground forces. The Marines are ready, she said without preamble. Just give the word. Mercer gestured to the chair across from him. Sit down, Helena. She complied reluctantly. We're wasting time. Every hour we delay gives them time to prepare. I know. Mercer pushed a tablet across the desk. I've received our orders from Earth Command. Briggs scanned the document, her expression hardening. Total war? They're authorizing unrestricted engagement? 2 million civilians. Helena, this goes beyond military response. They want the Cavor Dominion to understand the consequences. And you agree with this? Mercer's gaze drifted to the viewport, where stars glittered coldly against the void. Does it matter what I think? Those are our orders. It always matters what the commander thinks. Briggs leaned forward. You're not just a weapon they point. You're a human being. Am I? Mercer's voice was quiet. After Proxima Centauri, after the Rigel campaign, how much humanity do you think I have left? Briggs didn't answer immediately. They both carried the weight of previous conflicts, decisions made, lives taken, colonies reduced to ash. But this was different. This wasn't a military target. This was explicit authorization for retribution against civilian populations. We still have a choice, she said finally. Mercer activated the main display, showing the tactical layout of Vega Secundus, the Cavor colony with its 3 million inhabitants. No, we don't. Not anymore. He tapped a command, and the fleet's projected attack vectors appeared. Prepare your drop teams. We launch in 6 hours. As Briggs left, Mercer replayed the alien warning once more. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. Was this what the message meant? Not a threat against humanity, but a warning to others about what humanity would do when provoked? He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command settling over him like a shroud. Vega Secundus burned. From the command deck of the Nemesis. Mercer watched as the kinetic bombardment reduced the Cavor colony to ruins. The tungsten rods, each weighing 20 tons and accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck with the force of tactical nuclear weapons, but without the radiation, clean destruction, if such a thing existed. Admiral Hurst, his tactical advisor, stood beside him, an older man with thin white hair and eyes that had seen too much war. They're broadcasting surrender, sir. How many platforms have we deployed? Hurst checked his display. 17 of the planned 50, sir. Mercer nodded. Continue the bombardment as planned. Hurst's face remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Sir, with respect, they're surrendering. Their fleet is standing down. Their planetary defense grid is offline. Are you questioning my orders, Admiral? No, sir. I'm seeking clarification. Mercer turned to face him fully. Our orders are clear. The Cavor Dominion must understand that attacking human colonies carries consequences they cannot bear. If we accept their surrender now, what message does that send? That they can kill millions and then beg for mercy when the response comes? And what message does this send, sir? Hurst gestured to the view screen, where another salvo of kinetic weapons entered the atmosphere, trailing fire. That we're no better than they are? We're not fighting to be better, Admiral. We're fighting to ensure this never happens again. Mercer's voice was cold. Execute the remaining bombardment. Full deployment. Hurst saluted stiffly and relayed the orders. The bombardment continued for another 6 hours until Vega Secundus was nothing but a cratered wasteland. Preliminary estimates put Cavor casualties at over 2 million. An eye for an eye. As the fleet prepared to jump back to Arcturus, the communications officer approached Mercer. Sir, we're receiving another broadcast. Same unknown source as before. Mercer felt a chill run down his spine. Put it through. The same alien voice, but stronger now, more insistent. Do not attack the humans. Their vengeance knows no bounds. You will never escape their wrath. In the weeks that followed, the message repeated across all frequencies, growing in intensity and clarity. Intelligence analysts identified at least 12 different species receiving the broadcast, all potential threats to human expansion. Earth Command saw an opportunity. The alien warning had created a psychological advantage, a deterrent more powerful than any fleet. They ordered Mercer to press that advantage. The Jaren Collective was next, a loose federation of systems that had been encroaching on human mining operations in the Orion Spur. Intelligence suggested they had supplied the Cavor Dominion with targeting data for the attack on Epsilon Eridani 3. This time, Mercer deployed railgun platforms in a blockade formation around their primary trading hubs. No kinetic bombardment, just a stranglehold on their economy. When their council requested negotiations, Earth Command rejected it outright. "Make them suffer," came the orders. "Make an example of them." Mercer complied. The blockade tightened, food shipments were interdicted, medical supplies confiscated. Within months, the Jiran Collective fractured, its member worlds turning on each other in desperation. When it was over, when the survivors finally surrendered unconditionally, the same alien broadcast returned, louder than ever. "Do not attack the humans. Their revenge is methodical and absolute. You will never escape their wrath." After the Jirun came the Valari Ascendancy, a sophisticated civilization that had maintained a facade of neutrality while secretly arming Earth's enemies. Mercer deployed AI-guided torpedoes against their orbital shipyards, reducing generations of technological achievement to orbiting debris in a single day. With each victory, with each demonstration of humanity's ruthless efficiency in warfare, the alien warning grew more urgent, spreading further across the galaxy. And with each repetition, Mercer felt something changing within himself, a hardening, a calcification of something once vital and human. In his private moments, he began to wonder if the warning was meant for him as well. "We've gone too far." The words hung in the air of the war room aboard Arcturus Station. Admiral Corwin, newly arrived from Earth to serve as strategic liaison, had spoken them after reviewing the campaign reports. Mercer regarded him coolly. "We're following orders, Admiral. The same orders you approved." Corwin, a thin, scholarly man who looked out of place in a military uniform, shook his head. "The orders were to ensure our security, not to wage a crusade across the Orion Arm. We've destroyed 3 civilizations in less than a year. We've neutralized 3 threats," Colonel Briggs corrected, though her voice lacked conviction. She'd changed over the months of campaign. They all had. Her once precise movements now carried a nervous energy, her eyes constantly scanning, as if expecting attack from all sides. "And created a dozen more." Corwin activated the strategic display, showing a spreading network of alliances forming against human interests. "Every species within 100 light-years is watching us. Commodore, they're afraid." "Yes, but fear breeds desperation. Intelligence suggests they're forming a coalition." "Let them," Mercer said dismissively. "They've seen what happens to our enemies." "Have you heard the latest broadcast?" Corwin asked quietly. Mercer tensed. The alien warnings had become something of an obsession for him. Each one archived, analyzed, compared to previous iterations. "What about it?" Corwin tapped a command, and the alien voice filled the room, but different now, tinged with what could only be described as dread. "Do not attack the humans. They cannot be stopped once provoked. Their wrath consumes worlds and extinguishes stars. You will never escape." "They're talking about us like we're some kind of cosmic horror," Corwin said. "Is that what we've become, Commodore? The monsters of the galaxy?" Before Mercer could respond, the alert system activated. A junior officer rushed in, face pale. "Sir, we've detected massive hyperspace signatures. Multiple species, hundreds of ships, converging on the Arcturus Gauntlet." The Arcturus Gauntlet, a treacherous region of space near the station, filled with asteroid fields and radiation belts, perfect for an ambush. "How many?" Mercer demanded. "Current count is over 500 vessels, sir. Configuration matches Cavor, Jirun, Valeri, and at least 4 other species we've never encountered before." "The Conclave," Corwin whispered. "Intelligence warned this might happen. A coalition of species uniting against us." Mercer was already moving toward the command center, Briggs and Corwin following. "Alert the fleet! Battle stations! I want every ship ready to jump in 30 minutes. "Jump where?" Corwin asked. "We're outnumbered at least 5 to 1. Mercer's smile was cold and without humor. Into the gauntlet, Admiral. They think they're setting a trap for us. We're going to show them who the real predators are. The Retribution fleet hung in the void at the edge of the Arcturus gauntlet. 97 ships against the gathered might of what was now calling itself the Conclave of Preservation. Their combined fleets numbered over 500 vessels of varying sizes and capabilities, arranged in a classic encirclement formation designed to trap the humans within the asteroid field. A message had preceded their arrival, broadcast on all frequencies. Humanity has proven itself a scourge upon the galaxy. Your relentless vengeance threatens all spacefaring civilizations. Today, we end your reign of terror once and for all. In the command center of the Nemesis. Mercer studied the tactical display with cold calculation. The enemy outnumbered them significantly, but numbers weren't everything. The Conclave was an alliance of convenience, different technologies, different tactical doctrines, minimal experience working together. They've never fought as one before, he observed to his assembled commanders. That gives us an advantage. Colonel Briggs nodded, her expression grim. The asteroid field helps too. It will break up their formation, force them to navigate carefully. What's the plan, sir? Admiral Hurst asked. The old man looked tired, the weight of recent campaigns evident in the deep lines of his face. Mercer activated the holographic display, showing the complex three-dimensional terrain of the gauntlet. We're not going to run, and we're not going to surrender. We're going to hit them with everything we have. He outlined his strategy, a modified version of the ancient hammer and anvil tactic. The fleet would split into 3 battle groups. The first, led by the Nemesis, would engage the center of the Conclave formation, drawing their attention. The second and third groups would execute micro-jumps to flanking positions, using the asteroid field for cover, then close the trap. We'll be exposed during the initial engagement, Admiral Corwin pointed out. If their center holds, we'll take heavy casualties before the flanking groups can engage. Their center won't hold, Mercer said with absolute certainty. They lack unified command. Once we apply pressure, they'll fragment. The briefing continued, detailing specific targeting priorities and contingencies. Throughout it all, Mercer maintained the same cold, detached demeanor that had characterized his leadership since Epsilon Aerodani 3. But, inside, something was shifting, a growing awareness that this battle represented something more than tactical victory or defeat. This was a turning point for humanity, for the galaxy, and for John Mercer himself. As the commanders dispersed to their ships, Corwin lingered behind. Commodore, there's still time to attempt negotiations. The Conclave's message suggested they're willing to. There will be no negotiations, Mercer cut him off. They came here to destroy us. We will not give them the chance. And if we win, what then? Do we continue this cycle of vengeance until the entire galaxy fears us? Is that the legacy you want humanity to leave among the stars? Mercer turned away, his gaze fixed on the tactical display, where enemy ships glowed like malevolent red stars. My concern is not with legacy, Admiral. It's with survival. Survival at what cost? Corwin pressed. We've already lost something essential in our pursuit of vengeance. I've seen it in the eyes of our crews, in the way they talk about the enemy, not as sentient beings but as targets to be eliminated. We're becoming something inhuman. For a moment, Mercer didn't respond. Then, quietly, perhaps that's what we need to be to survive out here. Corwin shook his head sadly. If that's true, then perhaps we don't deserve to. Well, the battle began with a silence that belied its violence. In the vacuum of space, the massive exchange of weapons fire, railgun projectiles, plasma torpedoes, laser arrays produced no sound. Only the tactical displays showed the fury being unleashed as the Nemesis battle group engaged the center of the Conclave formation. As predicted, the enemy response was uncoordinated. The Cavor vessels pressed forward aggressively, while the Giron ships held position. The Volari attempted complex flanking maneuvers that brought them into conflict with their allies. What should have been an overwhelming force quickly descended into tactical chaos. Still, the sheer number of enemy vessels took its toll. 3 human destroyers were lost in the opening exchange, their debris adding to the navigational hazards of the asteroid field. The Nemesis itself shuddered under repeated impacts, shields failing on 2 decks. Mercer stood at the center of the command deck, issuing orders with mechanical precision. His face betrayed no emotion, not even when the tactical officer reported that the destroyer, Vengeance, had been lost with all hands, including Admiral Hurst, who had transferred his flag there. "Status of flanking groups?" he asked. "Group 2 in position, sir. Group 3 executing final microjump now." Mercer nodded. "All ships, execute attack pattern Omega. Spring the trap." The human fleet moved with practiced coordination, the result of months of brutal campaigning together. The flanking groups emerged from concealment among the asteroids, catching the disorganized Conclave forces in a devastating crossfire. Human railguns tore through alien hulls. AI-guided torpedoes sought out enemy command ships with unerring accuracy. For a moment, it seemed the battle would be a decisive victory for humanity. The Conclave formation was collapsing, individual species breaking away, some already turning to flee. Then, without warning, a new hyperspace rupture opened at the edge of the battlefield. Through it emerged a massive vessel, unlike anything in human records, a crystalline structure that seemed to absorb and redirect light, creating a disorienting visual effect. It was accompanied by a dozen smaller craft of similar design. "Configuration unknown," the tactical officer reported, voice tight with tension. "No match in our database." The strange vessels moved into position between the human fleet and the retreating Conclave ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a transmission came through on all frequencies, the same resonant, stone-on-stone voice that had been broadcasting the warnings. "Enough! This cycle of vengeance must end." The voice identified itself as representing the Airy Collective, a species so ancient they had abandoned physical warfare millennia ago. They had been observing the conflict, sending warnings to prevent full-scale interspecies war. "We have seen this pattern before, across countless civilizations. Vengeance begets vengeance, until nothing remains but ash and memory. Humanity stands at a crossroads. Continue this path, and you may achieve dominance through fear, but at the cost of your very humanity." On the command deck of the Nemesis, Mercer listened in silence. Something in the alien's words resonated with a doubt that had been growing within him, a recognition of what he and his fleet had become. "Sir," Colonel Briggs spoke quietly at his side. "Orders?" Around them, the command crew waited, tension thick in the air. They had been following Mercer through a campaign of ruthless vengeance. Would they follow him toward peace? Mercer closed his eyes briefly, seeing again the kinetic bombardments, the blockades, the methodical dismantling of entire civilizations, all justified as necessary, as righteous vengeance for the attack on Epsilon Eridani III. But where did it end? He opened his eyes and squared his shoulders. "All ships, stand down weapons, maintain defensive posture only." A ripple of surprise ran through the command deck, but no one questioned the order. After months of following him into increasingly brutal engagements, they would follow him in this too. "Open a channel to all forces, ours and theirs." When the communications officer nodded, Mercer spoke. "This is Commodore John Mercer of the Earth Alliance Retribution Fleet. I propose an immediate cessation of hostilities and the establishment of a neutral zone for discussions between all parties." For several long moments, there was no response. Then, one by one, acknowledgments came in, first from the Ori Collective, then from the various species of the Conclave. Last to respond were the Cavor Dominion, whose attack had started the cycle of vengeance. "We accept," came their terse reply. As the tension on the command deck eased, Admiral Corwin approached Mercer. "That was unexpected." Mercer's expression remained unreadable. "Was it? Perhaps we've all had enough of watching worlds burn. What happens now?" "Now," Mercer looked out at the battlefield, where disabled ships from a dozen species drifted among the asteroids. "Now, we see if we can build something better than fear." The negotiations took place aboard the Airy vessel, a neutral ground where representatives from all species could meet face to face. The vast crystalline chamber seemed to shift and flow around them, adapting to the biological needs of each delegation. Mercer represented humanity, along with Admiral Corwin and a small diplomatic team sent from Earth. Across from them sat representatives of the Conclave, the insectoid Cavor, the serpentine Jarun, the crystalline Valeri, and others whose names humans were still learning to pronounce. The Ari themselves remained mostly unseen, present only as shifting patterns of light within the crystal walls, their thoughts translated by sophisticated interfaces. For 3 days, they talked. Accusations flew. Grievances were aired. The attack on Epsilon Aerodani 3, the retribution against Vega Secundus, the blockade of the Jaren Collective, the destruction of the Volari shipyards. Each atrocity justified by the one that came before it, stretching back to slights and misunderstandings from humanity's first tentative steps into the galactic community. On the 4th day, Mercer addressed the gathered representatives. The speech he delivered wasn't the one Earth Command had prepared for him, filled with demands for security guarantees and technological concessions. Instead, he spoke from something deeper, something that had been buried beneath layers of military discipline and righteous anger. "We came to the stars, thinking ourselves explorers," he began. "Peaceful emissaries of Earth. But we brought with us something ancient and dangerous, the human capacity for vengeance. When we were attacked, we responded not just with proportional force, but with overwhelming retribution. We told ourselves it was necessary, that only through fear could we ensure our safety among the stars." He paused, looking around at the alien faces, so different in form, yet all showing the universal signs of wariness, of pain, of loss. "I have led that campaign of fear. I have watched worlds burn and called it justice. But there is no justice in endless cycles of vengeance, only the slow death of everything we value. The Ari were right. We stand at a crossroads, not just humanity, but all of us here. We can continue to destroy one another until nothing remains, or we can find another way." The chamber was silent as Mercer proposed what would eventually become known as the Galactic Deterrence Pact. Not a peace treaty based on trust, but a framework of mutual assured destruction that acknowledged the reality of interspecies relations. No species would attack another without facing unified response from all signatories. Verification protocols, neutral observers, shared early warning systems, practical measures to ensure compliance through enlightened self-interest rather than goodwill. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even truly peace, but it was a beginning. As the negotiations continued, refined, and eventually produced a framework all parties could accept, Mercer found himself increasingly withdrawn from the process. He had started something, but its completion would require diplomats, not soldiers. His role was ending. On the final day, as the various delegations prepared to return to their respective worlds with the preliminary agreement, The airy representative approached Mercer in a form approximating humanoid. Or you have taken the first step away from the abyss, it said, its voice the same resonant tone that had broadcast the warnings. But the path will not be easy. Old hatreds do not die quickly. No, Mercer agreed. They don't. But perhaps they can be channeled into something less destructive. And what of your own hatred, Commodore? What of the vengeance that has driven you these many months? Mercer didn't answer immediately. The question struck at something he had been avoiding confronting. I don't know, he said finally. I've been a soldier for so long. I'm not sure I know how to be anything else. Then that is your next battle. The Ari's form shimmered slightly. Not against external enemies, but against the wrath within. I saw. The journey back to Earth was long and silent. The Retribution Fleet, renamed the Peacekeeping Force in a public relations move by Earth Command, traveled at standard speed rather than rushing home through hyperspace. It gave the crews time to process what had happened, to begin the difficult transition from a war footing to whatever came next. In his quarters, aboard the Nemesis, Mercer stood before the mirror, studying his reflection. The face that looked back at him seemed older than his 52 years, lines carved deep by stress and the weight of command decisions. His eyes held a hardness that hadn't been there before Epsilon Eridani III. Am I still human? He asked his reflection, voicing the question that had haunted him since the battle at the Arcturus Gauntlet. The mirror offered no answer. A chime at the door interrupted his thoughts. Colonel Briggs entered, carrying a data tablet. The final casualty reports. Sir. Mercer took the tablet without looking at it. How bad? 37 ships lost. Just over 9,000 personnel. Briggs' voice was carefully neutral. The Conclave losses were much higher, estimated at over 60,000. Mercer placed the tablet on his desk, still unopened. And what did any of it accomplish, Helena? What did those 9,000 die for? They died following orders, sir. Same as they always do. Orders I gave them. Mercer turned back to the viewport, where stars streaked by in the familiar patterns of hyperspace. I wonder if they'll thank me for it, wherever they are now. Briggs was silent for a moment. Then, carefully. Permission to speak freely, sir? When have you ever needed permission? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Fair point. I've been visiting the wounded, the ones we couldn't transfer to the medical ships. They're not angry, John. They're relieved. They've been fighting for so long, watching us become something they didn't recognize, something they were afraid of. And now they have hope again. Not much, maybe, but some. She hesitated, then added, the same could be true for you. You know. Mercer turned to face her fully. What do you mean? I mean that you've been carrying the weight of every decision, every death, every burned world like it was yours alone to bear. It wasn't. We all participated. We all share the responsibility. I was in command? Yes. And now you've commanded us towards something better. She stepped closer, her expression earnest. Don't you see? You found your way back. You remembered what it means to be human. Not just the vengeance, but the capacity for change, for choosing a different path. Mercer wanted to believe her, but the faces of the dead, human and alien alike, haunted him still. I'm not sure redemption is that easy. Helena, who said anything about easy? She shook her head. This is just the beginning. What matters is what you do now, what we all do now. After she left, Mercer returned to the mirror. The face that looked back at him was still lined with the weight of command, still hardened by conflict. But perhaps, somewhere in the eyes, there was something new, or rather, something old remembered, a flicker of humanity not yet extinguished. Yet, he activated his personal console and replayed the original alien warning that had started it all. "Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath." The words that had once seemed like a cosmic endorsement of humanity's vengeance now carried a different meaning. A warning not just to potential enemies, but to humanity itself. A reminder of the darkness they carried within them, and the vigilance required to keep it in check. As Earth grew larger in the view screens, Mercer made a decision. The Galactic Deterrence Pact was a start, but it wasn't enough. Not for him. When they arrived, he would submit his resignation from Fleet Command. There were other ways to serve, other paths to follow. Perhaps working with the diplomatic corps to build real understanding between species. Perhaps something else entirely. The wrath that had driven him, that had nearly consumed him, would always be there. The capacity for vengeance that seemed uniquely, terrifyingly human. But alongside it existed other qualities: compassion, curiosity, the ability to recognize one's mistakes and change course. In the end, that was the true power of humanity. Not their capacity for retribution, but their capacity for growth. Not the wrath that their enemies could never escape, but the hope that they themselves might. Mercer turned from the mirror and began composing his resignation. Beyond the viewport, Earth waited, blue and fragile and worth fighting for. In all the ways that mattered,